Welcome to Can I Speak to Your Product Manager, the nitty-gritty with your favorite PMs. I'm Kyle Kolich, Vice President of Product at Zora.
And I'm Lucas Weber, Director of Product Management at Zora. On today's episode, we have Ben Ellison, Senior Director of Product Management at Sam's Club. And we're going to start off the show by talking about Ben's recent Never Have I Ever moment, as well as his best tips and insights for being a successful PM in the ever-evolving business landscape. Thanks for joining us, Ben, today. So each episode, we like to kick things off with a little game of Never Have I Ever.
Never have I ever.
Never have I ever.
Never have I ever.
So outside of work and your role, you probably get to do things that maybe you initially thought impossible. And no matter what, it magically turns out to work out. So we wanted to bring your experiences on the outside to the inside. Tell us about one of those experiences. Give us your perspective as a PM. And in the process, also allow us to get to know you a little bit better. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about your Never Have I Ever.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lucas. And thanks, guys, for having me. My Never Have I Ever. I think recently my biggest new endeavor has been picking up pickleball, which I feel like may not be our listeners' first time hearing about this. It is the craze that's sweeping the nation. But as someone who grew up without any sort of background in racket sports, it's been an interesting thing to pick up. So that's been a kind of a fun journey over the last month and a half for me.
What got you into it, and what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not one for understanding kind of how fads came about. Like when Beanie Babies were a thing and Pokemon were a thing, I just jumped in and did it. I wasn't sure why those things were so big. So it's kind of been the same thing here with pickleball. There's benefits to it, I think, for people that, like myself, couldn't quite get the hang of tennis. I like to say that people either come down from tennis or they come up from ping pong, and I was definitely one of those ones that was coming up from ping pong. It's nice to be able to walk onto the court and pretty much anyone you grab can return a ball, which again is different than tennis for me. It makes for kind of a more fun game. But yeah, I wouldn't even be able to delve into why people are into pickleball so badly right now.
That's awesome. Have you done any competitions yet? Because there are competitions in pickleball.
I haven't, but I have. I think I said pickleball out loud in front of my phone, so I've been starting to get targeted with more advertisements and videos about tournaments and new paddles I should be picking up as well. So maybe soon, maybe some sort of wide open U.S. everyone goes thing would be kind of fun to go with.
So tell us, speaking of equipment, is it easy to get into? Is it expensive? What did you find?
Yeah, it was interesting. So my journey actually was my girlfriend and I were visiting in London. She's actually from London. And we went with one of her friends to play a game called Paddle, which is sort of like pickleball mixed with racquetball, but is sort of their version of what's going crazy in Europe right now. And you can imagine kind of a pickleball-sized court. It's enclosed with glass walls, similar to sort of racquetball, and you can play off the wall. They play with a tennis ball, but the paddle is even harder to hit with, so everything is about the same speed as pickleball.
Got it. So now you've had exposure to really two different games. Is paddle also something that's relatively a recent phenomenon in the UK, or is that?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. With movies that come out 2 by 2, I think Bugs Life and Ants and
the asteroid movies.
Movie. Yeah. Everything comes out in pairs, but this seems to be kind of another phenomenon of that pickleball over here and paddle over there.
But they kind of like you said, they kind of stemmed either from tennis players or ping pong players, and they all kind of morphed into this almost new product that came out of this. It's like the tennis players probably got the knees hurt, a little hard to play, missed the serve and volley game, and now you go to the ping pong players where it actually is pretty hard. I mean, I played ping pong the other day and I was drenched. So you can kind of see that this kind of fits a new persona who like those both sports, but maybe don't have the body they used to, and kind of worked out.
Awesome. Excellent. So pickleball, you've picked it up. What's the future look like for you?
Well, Lucas, you're the one pushing me to go enter a tournament, so I might have to do that for you. But I think the first step is really getting the basics down. I think we went and bought these carbon fiber paddles, not the ones that are like $400, $300 you're seeing at like a Dick's Sporting Goods, but more like a sort of $50 one-off line. We actually didn't really like them as much as the ones our friends were playing with, which are just the normal sort of wood ones that everyone sort of starts off with. So we went and actually got those. So at some point, we're probably gonna have to graduate away from those when we start seeing certain types of shots matter, things like that. I'm interested to see how long it lasts. I think I'm always kind of, whenever some new thing comes along, I'm always the one who wants to keep playing it for the longest. So I want to see how long everyone wants to keep playing with me.
One of the things that I did hear about pickleball, actually two things that came up in the press was one was the fact that pickleball players were taking over tennis courts, and so there's some upset there from that. That group of folks, and then the second thing I heard was that it's really loud. Any thoughts on those two items from the news?
Yeah, absolutely. I think taking a reverse order, they are definitely loud. And I feel like ownership as a pickleball person that I should be defending that it's not loud, but the reality, it's loud. I was actually playing in a racquetball area to try and do some like practice hits, and I couldn't stay in there. It was so loud. So there's definitely a piece of that. That feels like something that Paddle across the pond has figured out. The tennis racket combination over there is actually quite a bit quieter. So maybe it's too late to turn the boat around on what we're using for pickleball, but there are some learnings across the pond.
Yeah. That kind of leads into the second segment we have, because there's always innovation when you have these new products and being able to learn from other groups and make the product even better. So our second segment, which we like to call Innovation, Therapy, and Other Wild Tales. So let's get in the nitty-gritty, the day-to-day stuff, what's happening in the world of PMs. So you want to give us a story about something you recently worked on at Sam's Club that kind of might bring out some of that innovation and things you were working with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to start this segment for views is just to say the word AI, right? We can just start off and work our way back from there. One of the great things that I've been fortunate enough to work on at Sam's has been our inventory scanning robots. We started off on this journey quite a few years ago. We looked at doing crowdsourcing. We looked at different ways to gamify it. We looked at all sorts of technologies from RFID and Bluetooth and automated forklifts. We quickly went through sort of, I would call it 11 to 12 things that had legs and crossed them off the list. And what we came down to was an inventory scanning robot. And what that is doing for us is it's taking photos, 22 million per day across our chain. And it's allowing us to put products into the correct locations in our systems. It's telling us when products are out. It's telling us when prices are wrong. It's giving us all the information that our members and our associates look to our systems to provide for them to do their everyday job.
So this is just automating cycle counts, right? If I remember, I was in supply chain at one point, and that was the name for it, right? Automating those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have all sorts of different ways that we're doing cycle counts. We have annual inventory. We have audits that we do throughout the year. This technology is going to help us sort of do that much more efficiently with higher accuracy. So we're never trying to sell something that doesn't actually exist in the club. Right?
And I'm certain it's been around for a little bit now. So is it building a big repository of data? So it's continuously getting better at this. So if you ask the rower for Nutella, it'd be faster to get you where to find it, or is it how is that process working?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a great kind of like how do you use data in the best way possible. For us, this thing again started off as Project Nutella, right? And once we figured out where our product locations were, it became, all right, now we have this fantastic platform in the club. What else can we use it for? And the answers have continued to file in on that, right? We've got people from different parts of the organization coming in asking us what we can do with this technology. So it's all about what do we prioritize? What do we do first? But specifically to your question, Cal, like there is definitely a repository of data that we would love. Again, I'm going to drop the word in there, AI, things like that, to understand how are things behaving in clubs that we don't even know the right question to ask until the data tells that to us.
So if I went to a Sam's Club, would I see one of these?
Yes, you would. They're there in all 597 locations. Again, you'll have to see if they've got the Scrubby name on there or the teddy bear, but it'll be there.
So this robot came out. And I'm assuming you worked on it. Were there any specific items and challenges that maybe you were particularly wrestling with or needed to solve to make this obviously wonderful innovation come to life and provide outcomes?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's always going to be things you never thought of beforehand, right? We came in and we said, oh, it'd be great if this scanning robot can give us pictures of everything on every shelf and just tell us where it is. And then you get into it and you realize that certain packaging covers certain products, or people leave the ketchup on the coffee. You deal with all these use cases, and it's really on the experience team, which for us is we have one person from the product team, one person from the ops team, UX, engineering. Asset protection, depends what that project needs. We get together and we decide, okay, what do we actually need to go after here? Is it important for us to create a notification that tells the associate that ketchup bottle has been left there? Is that the most important thing we want to work on right now? But yeah, of course, along the way, there's a lot of can-do attitude to get anything like this to work in the first place, for sure.
And
awesome.
the prioritization for that, does it? Is there kind of ranking? Like, does the asset manager more important? How do you prioritize some of those asks, and what's your framework to help to determine what do you want to look at?
Yeah, I think prioritization is the right tool. I think it's overbuilt as a complicated process. For me, as long as everything gets onto the backlog and you're having a conversation that you see everything on the backlog and what can we do next, I think those conversations, there's a good give and pull on our team, and with any team that has been there and built that trust. The prioritization framework is pretty simple, right? You want to get the most value across the most users as possible at any one time, with some caveats there of this has to come before that or this has to come before that. But as long as you're not dealing with, hey, asset protection, or your engineering team is bringing in, hey, we need to get this tech debt done at this time, or asset protection wants this audit launched at this time. As long as you're having a conversation about all the things you could be doing instead of the one-off of should we do this or should we not do this, you're going to end up with a good outcome.
Very nice. But again, an interesting point about diverse teams, right? Having different folks with different views on the team, helping out with, in this particular case, prioritization, I'm sure design, right, et cetera. Excellent. Very good. Anything else about this project that particularly stands out for you in terms of, other things that I think is kind of prototypical for product management that we should think about or know about?
Well, I think it's a great shout out. I'm going to sort of plug the innovation over here at Sam's Club. We're we're an $84 billion business, but we're the little brother to Walmart, right? And we think of ourselves as this innovation hub, and that's sort of how we build ourselves. That's how I arrived. I was told it was like, and I arrived with skepticism, right? Again, $84 billion company, how much innovation, how much can they really take and make risks here? But they've lived up to that, and I think you see really strong from the top direction on what our principles should be, and we take those directly into our products. And some of the convenience that we have, some of the products that we've launched there, these are some big swings and big hits that Sam's Club has made over the past 5-10 years, right? Another big one for us was Scan and Go. That was a hackathon project at the beginning, but has become a huge differentiation for us that allows our members to skip the line, scan products as they go, look things up within the app. And we've been rewarded with those big hits as well, right? We see that those members, come to Sam's more often, are happier members, higher NPS, buy more from us, stay with us longer. So these convenience plays that we're putting in, the sort of the leaning into tech, which at one point in Walmart's history, they are quite tech forward now. We've completely jumped into it. It was a decision whether or not when Amazon came along, are we going to fight them on their turf or not? So. A real, very cool story of how you stick to product principles, how you stick to getting what your member wants and seeing the results from it. It's been fantastic to see over the past 4 or 5 years here.
So Sam's Club's like that almost mini skunk works to kind of innovate and do these new, innovative things. Have any of those bubbled up to the kind of the mothership? Any that kind of they've embraced as well, or not yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I had the full list with me here, but I think even Scan and Go is a great example of Walmart Pay coming along and doing that. There was some early work that we did with computer vision that had at least a little impact on what happened over there with VizPick. At the same time, I don't know exactly where every project pulls all of its information from. There's various skunk works throughout Walmart as well. So it's just been great. Like we have a CV Alliance group. It meets and we talk through all the computer vision projects that we're working on, all the things we're trying to do. Because you imagine a company the size of Walmart, you get siloed and you end up redoing a lot of the work together, which can be powerful when one team has figured out and one team hasn't, but you don't want 10 teams or 15 teams working on the same thing. So it's been great to go to those and take ideas from across Walmart, across Sam's, and build that up and bring it back to the group.
That's amazing. And you mentioned a lot of technological innovation. So I wanted to just we've been talking about AI actually quite a bit. We've even mentioned it right here talking with you, but you guys are already playing with computer vision and other things. And obviously the latest and greatest is generative AI, ML, and things like that. Are there anything maybe that you can give us a little bit of a hint of, how are you guys thinking about it, how you're bringing it to Sam's Club?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different ways to think about AI. I think we're all going to get surprised by the ways that it gets used. One of the frameworks that I use is thinking about it as an external facing tool or an internal facing tool. And both of those are going to become very important. But I'm really excited about what the internal facing tools can look like personally. What can a product manager do with their generative AI to make themselves more efficient, have better outcomes? I'm thinking about things like automating A/B testing, having it generate different flows and forms for us, creating test cases and running through those for us. I think you're going to see innovation on both sides of it. And we have some awesome things we can do with item file that will be member and customer facing for Sam's and Walmart. That'll be a fantastic use of AI. But I think what we really need to focus on is it's not quite there yet, right? We can't just ask generative AI, go do all these things for us with one sentence prompt. I think we all see the vision, and there's going to be, whether it's more computing power or another model that's more efficient or probably both, we're going to get there at some point. But right now, how do we get our toes wet? How do we get sort of everyone at Sam's and Walmart thinking about how to use this in the future, but also deliver value on it? So the way I think about that is how do we do some things through generative AI? We have some feedback that our product managers have, or our analytics team has, and step through things and really focus on the easier use cases, even if it's not the big awesome thing yet. I think when you look at any technology that's come along that has gone through the hype cycle, come off it, and then actually delivered, right? Like, integrated chips, for instance, right? There's just some time period where it wasn't quite viable yet. Like the scale wasn't there, the technology wasn't quite there. And we're just there, right, with AI. It's going to come faster probably than anything before it, but we're in that waiting period. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or 3 years, but it's coming, so.
Perfect. And so speaking of things maybe coming, maybe things on fire, we wanted to switch into our segment called PM Power Move.
Powering up. Power move.
Now, this is just something where we want to now drill into your day-to-day, maybe some particular event or challenge that you faced where you really needed to apply all the tools, all the skills you have as a product manager to get past it. Is there something there that you've experienced that you want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I hopefully not on a daily basis, but I deal with a lot of fires, right? When something goes wrong, I get brought in, and stepping in that fire, stepping into that foxhole, it's the old Dickens quote. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? If you do it correctly, you're going to build camaraderie with the team. You're going to have a great outcome. You're going to save the day. If there's dysfunction, you're going to cause the opposite of trust and these sort of problems that come out of getting things done, right? That's not always the right structure. So what I push myself on, what I push the team on is when you're in those moments where everything seems like it's on fire, how do you push on the fundamentals in those moments, right? How do you make sure you're building trust with the team instead of destroying trust? And how do you make sure that you're building the right process in that moment that builds through everything else? I'm reminded of a project that I worked on back in 2020 for COVID. When COVID hit our clubs, our associates were asked to scan their temperature and give a series of health questions to make sure that everyone was safe. So we were protecting our fellow associates and our fellow members. And part of that process was that we had to have a manager come to the door every time an associate came in, ask those questions, take a temperature. So it was taking up time from our associates, taking up time from our members. It was human contact that we didn't want. So we started evaluating a bunch of different companies for different technologies that were kind of these fly-by-night. We can give you a tablet, it can take a temperature, it uses a infrared monitor, all these kind of. I was getting emails from at gmail.com addresses. People were just trying to make this happen really quickly. And in that moment, the team that got thrown together on our side, again, we had another experienced team working there. We didn't know the space. We didn't know exactly what we were looking for. We knew there was going to be some sort of hardware solution part of this, and we hadn't done hardware before. In that moment, that was sort of our foxhole. We needed a solution yesterday, and we had to come together and make that happen.
Yeah, I think that you hit a common thread we hear a lot in this podcast is those who, PMs wear many different hats. And sometimes when you get into these escalations, these fire drills, that you're going to have to put on different hats very quickly. Like you didn't know hardware, but you had to figure out hardware. I mean, I think we're in situations where we have to deal with a fire, and we're talking with the customer and trying to manage the relationship there, to talking to the engineers, maybe coming up with design on the fly. So there's a lot of that innovation that comes out of the fire. But I guess a question I have for you though is, and one thing I think a lot of PMs are challenged with is when they're in the fire, how do you balance the escalations in the fire, but also then your overall plan and roadmap? And how do you kind of judge which ones gets priority? What's that kind of process you have to kind of get people back into the roadmap, get back into the overvision, not stuck into a kind of a foxhole, like you said?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I come from the school of thought that everyone is a rational and a rational player, and everyone understands the greater good in a situation. For me, it's about anytime you have strife, it's really a communication problem. So how do you put together the pros and cons of going with this versus that? How do you get across the trade-offs, the value of going this direction or that direction? And that that comes back to not just sort of the foxhole, but how do you prioritize your tech debt versus the new feature, right? And it's I think ultra important in that foxhole, because that process is what everyone learns in that moment. How did we become an effective team? What was it done? And you don't want someone to come out of that saying, oh, that was effective because I found my voice and I pushed things through and I was the winner there. It needs to be, we came together, there was clear communication. I gave my 20% and everyone gave their 20%, and we got sort of no one's super happy, but we all got what was best for the member, for the associate, whoever it may have been on that project. Yeah, the reality is that in any fire, it's not that you have to be on every minute, right? There's going to be, you're waking up in the morning and having your coffee, and you can think through things a little bit. Yeah. And with I think it was Eisenhower's or the 2x2 matrix of what's important and what's urgent, or what's valuable and what's urgent. And as long as you're looking at that, hey, it's not urgent, but it's valuable box every morning, and saying, hey, what do I want to bring to the conversation today? Even if it is a foxhole, even if it is a fire, you're going to be better off for that. Yeah. So just finding your moment of, I'm going to step out of this foxhole for a second, reevaluate, and then step back in with that clarity.
Yeah. What's really valuable, I think, that I'm picking out here is, one, you're focusing on process, even if there's a lot of tension and, obviously maybe urgency and value that's driving all this stuff. But it's a process that's then team-based and reproducible, right? So folks can actually learn from all this and reproduce that to a great effect anytime these things happen again, because frequently these fires aren't just one-offs, right? There's probably going to be another one sometime soon, and maybe a different team will assemble, and the question is, how do you solve that? And if folks see a very successful process for solving that, they'll much quicker apply it and resolve it again. So having that process fine-tuned and standing by, right? So everybody just understands what to do, what the roles are, how they pitch in, how the team works under pressure well, with the things you said, communication and issue resolution, and being able to also come in and out, right, and share these things. That's a great way to make a sustainable way of dealing with these things when they happen. It's great insight.
I think the other way to moving to our segment 4, I think it's another foxhole.
What do you want to do?
Let's do it.
No.
No. Maybe. Yes.
You're in the foxhole. You have to make a quick decision. Prioritization frameworks in place, the team's in place. Will you ship it or skip it? So will you bring it to market, this product, or will you skip it and make sure no one hears about it ever again? So
All right.
All right.
I'm ready.
First one, a quiet pickleball.
Ship it. Definitely.
Okay. I think your point before, it's a gap right now in the market. Anyone's listening out there, Ben's going to have a quiet pickleball out there, and he's going to try it out. So that's good. The second one, you did talk about there are kind of two versions, paddle ball, the paddle one in London and the pickleball in the U.S. What about a World Series between the two? Would that work?
Interesting. And how are you thinking? There's a sort of, you play a game over here and a game over there?
It's either the top players from from one side of the pond versus the other side of the pond, and they play together and see what happens. Would that work?
The way you're thinking, Kyle. I'm shipping that. I'm a big
Oh.
World Cup fan. I love countries getting together. That's great.
All right. So we're doing good here. Now the last one, I just saw this and I thought it was interesting. But you know how those big screen TVs that they have?
Mm-hmm.
You can have it now foldable. So like a 72-inch screen, foldable large screen TV. Will you ship it or would you skip it?
I'm struggling with the use case on this one. You bring that on vacation to an Airbnb that doesn't have a TV at it. You bring that to the beach. I think I'm gonna skip this because I don't want people bringing a foldable TV to the beach.
Yeah, I didn't understand the why for it. I mean, it looked cool. It was cool to see it kind of fold into the wall, fold into the floor or the counter. But I didn't quite understand why you needed it. Maybe just, I don't know. But I was struggling with it, but it looked cool. So
Is someone gonna buy it? I think the answer to that is yes. So,
I'm sure there's someone going to buy it. So someone will pick up that and run with it. But you're saying not with you.
skip it.
All right.
Cool. I'm going to throw a couple in.
Okay.
Ben, how about a completely automated self-checkout? Do you think that will ever just be de facto the only way to shop?
I'm gonna ship it with a caveat, which is I want the human interaction, and I think everyone does. So we'll have to adapt with that and figure out where that happens. Hopefully, kind of during your shopping experience or at the door. But I want convenience and friction, but I want it to be a human experience.
Got it. So maybe it's going back to that iteration, like you said, with the fully automated forklifts, right? Where yes, automation, but then there's still some person in the middle that provides that interaction, right?
I love having the personal checkout experience so they can judge me on all the things I'm putting on my cart and saying, "Are you really eating that?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm eating all that."
Oh, it's for your children, Kyle. It was fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I know there's a lot of candy. I know it's bad for me. Stop judging.
Cool. And last one I had for you was, and we've talked about it obviously already, is AI. Where are you? What do you think?
I feel like I've shipped too many of these, but I think we need the first, ship it. We need the first use case. It needs to be the MVP, which is viable, minimum viable product. What's the smallest little thing we can do with that with AI first? But it's coming. We got to get used to using it.
Not all hype. This is real. This is going to stay, and we'll iterate. Keep people in the middle to check, as you said now multiple times. Awesome.
That's right.
Well, very good. Excellent. Any final notes, Ben? It's been a real pleasure talking with you so far.
No, it's great. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate all the questions and talking through all this.
Great. Thank you, Ben.
Absolutely.
Think about it as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ben. And again, we look forward to keeping up with you, see how many foxholes you've been in if we check in with you again, and let's see how many iterations you've been able to do. Again, thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
I think that was a great conversation with Ben. I think I'm not a big pickleball fan, so I'm from the tennis world. So I was like, I want to hear about it, but I also don't like you taking my courts. But I did like his take on the inventory scanning robot. Kind of the genesis of it. I thought that was interesting. Where his bosses were in Sam's Club, and they're like, someone comes up and goes, "Where's the Nutella?" And they're all like, "We don't know." So, the innovation came out of just like, hey, it's a prop for our customers to find certain products that's come up with a better solution. And I like the fact that Sam's Club is like this innovative hub, that skunk work place where they can innovate and try different things and experiment with something, experiment with this robot, give it different names. I'm glad everyone has its own a name to kind of match to the personality of that location, which was great. The conversation when he's about being in the foxhole and lots of fires. I mean, that's typical PM 101, and being able to have a framework and process to kind of handle and using the team communication to kind of drive through clarity, make sure you don't spend your whole time there, but knowing that it's valuable to get those things done, but also knowing that you have to look at the other pieces and innovate on other parts and not just spend your time in a foxhole. I think that was it. That was a good lot of getting all the generative AI conversations. Great. I think he has a pretty good vision of it. I think that external internal views is a good way of looking at it. But yeah, overall it was a great conversation. What do you think, Lucas?
Yeah, I agree with you, Kyle. I mean, obviously, perhaps the whole school bit for pickleball is a little bit of exaggeration, but I am actually keen on the game. It's very inclusive. It's not. I mean, you can make it as athletic as you need to be, so it can really pull in a lot of folks, and I think that's where the popularity stems, and obviously pretty easy to get into, plus all the things we've mentioned. So we'll see where Ben goes. I wish him the best in the World Series when that comes around, right? But the real exciting thing that I got of it was just the combination of technology and actually being able to roll it out to such a broad market, right? And making it so that it actually works. I mean, there's one thing about talking about AI or creating a robot, et cetera, and another thing to actually put it into the many locations at Sam's Club and have it actually work and be valuable. I mean, how many times that technology gets put somewhere and just never gets used for whatever reason, right? It just doesn't solve anything. So having something that's operational and it actually works. And I think the biggest thing is just being able to work on such projects. I mean, and that's not the only one he's been working on. When the issue presented itself with COVID, right, he was able to jump in and actually help out and put together hardware and the process for checking associates and members in, and just being able to be part of the team, make that happen with technology, in that particular case, build it themselves. And I think you mentioned that, these are things that then eventually even roll up to Walmart itself, which Sam's Club is part of. So really amazing innovation and being challenged as a PM to do these different things. It's just, again, some of the things that we get to do as product managers that makes this job amazing, right? But you got to be able to get in there and work with the team and challenge yourself, persevere and overcome, as it were. Interesting to hear about the iteration. I think that addresses some of the AI issues, right? Like, how do you trust it? And so Ben mentioned putting a person in the middle to kind of check when things get rough or not quite right, and being able to check it is a very good way to onboard AI on its way to generate outcomes and value for us. So really interesting insights. Very much enjoyed talking with Ben, and look forward to catching up with him at some other time, see how things are going.
Yeah, I think if he does make that quiet pickleball, we get a cut from the profits. Because,
first of all, and I'm all in on quiet pickleball. It is
I think
loud.
It'd be a good idea.
Awesome. Great episode. Well, and that's the wrap for this particular episode. Again, everyone, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tune in for our next episode. Thank you so much.